remembering that every element of every story represents a part of our psychic makeup. Let's see what arises into our awareness when we put the pieces of this allegorical story together. There were 3 young maidens who were adept weavers, and the first 2 maidens made beautiful cloth, but the third made exquisite cloth, always with the colors of the rainbow. Now it was the habit of the king of that realm to go in disguise each evening out to walk the streets of his kingdom to hear what was happening with the populace there. So it so happened he was passing the window of the 3 maidens as they were weaving and having a discussion. And the first maiden said, "Oh, I know the king is looking for a wife, and if I became the queen, I would weave murals that would adorn his whole palace." And the second sister said, "Well, I would weave the king a tent in which could house himself and all his servants." And the third sister said, "I'm tired of weaving. I would endeavor to be a good queen and mother to our 3 children, 2 boys and a girl." So the king, hearing this, when he went back to his palace, the next day he called the eldest sister to him, and he said, "Would you really weave murals to fill my palace if you became my queen?" And the first maiden said, "Oh, surely, as your queen, you would not expect me to continue to be a weaver." The king got quite angry and sent her away. And he called the second sister to him. And he said, "Would you weave me a tent to house all of my servants and myself?" The second sister said, "But I would be a queen. A queen does not weave." And the king became very angry. So he sent her away and called the third sister. And he said, "What did you mean when you said you would endeavor to be a good queen and mother to our 3 children?" And the third sister blushed deeply, and she said, "I had a dream." Well, the third sister was very comely. In fact, she was quite beautiful. So the king fell in love with her and married her. But of course her 2 elder sisters were very, very jealous, and even more so when she was to give birth to her first child. So the 2 sisters plotted together with the midwife and bribed her, so that when the first son was born to the queen, the midwife replaced the infant with a cat. And covering the basket in which the small infant was placed with a weaving of the queen, she took the basket out into the forest and left it there. Well, of course, the king was very disappointed, but he loved his wife and said, "Never mind, next time you will give birth to a normal child." But as it happened, an old woman who lived in the forest heard the infant crying and took the basket back and nursed the infant, adopting it as her own. So again it happened that the queen gave birth to yet another son, and the same occurrence took place. The midwife replaced it with a cat, and covering the basket in which the infant was placed with the weaving of the queen, put it out in the forest. The king again said, "Never mind, next time you will give birth to a child." But again the third child was born as a girl, and again the midwife put it in a basket, took it out of the forest covered with the cloth of the queen's weaving, and left it there. All 3 infants were adopted by the old woman in the forest as her own. After the third child was born, the king was so angry. He exiled his wife, sending her out of the palace. She went off and became a weaver, making a simple living from her weaving. Her 3 children grew to maturity with the old woman in the forest. And one day the 2 elder sisters were out gathering herbs in the forest when they came across a maiden. The resemblance to their sister was so striking. They, of course, could see that it was the child of their sister. So they confronted her and said, "Do you have brothers?" And she said, "Yes, I have 2 brothers." "Ah," said the sisters, "do they love you?" "Yes, they love me more than anything," said the maiden. "Well," this first sister said, "why hasn't your brothers dug you a well?" And the second sister said, "Why have your not brothers given you a bird that sings sweetly?" And then the sisters went off, leaving the young maiden weeping. When her brothers returned from hunting, they found their sister, tears flowing down her face, and they asked her what was it that troubled her, and she said, "You don't love me. You haven't given me a well, and you haven't given me a nightingale that sings sweetly." The brothers said, "But we do love you. We will begin digging the well immediately, and we will find you the bird." So they dug the well. And when the well was dug, the maiden could see her beautiful face in the water of the well. But then they had to find the bird. And the first brother said, "I'll go to seek the bird." And off he went. As he was seeking, he came across an old man and asked him, "Do you know where I can find a bird, a nightingale that sings sweetly?" "Oh," said the old man, "you must take the straight road. Do not deviate. Just follow the straight road, and there you'll find a garden. When you enter the garden gate, you will see a cage hanging from a branch. Hide yourself, and when the bird returns, close the cage and carry it with you. But remember, if you hear voices which tell you that this is not the bird that you seek, take no heed, else your fate will be dire." The first brother found the garden and entered the gate and saw the cage and hid. And when the bird returned, he closed the cage door. But as he was carrying it off, loud voices from all directions came to say, "That's not the bird that you seek. You've made a mistake, an error." And the brother doubted himself. "Oh, I wonder, am I mistaken?" So he dropped the cage, and he'd only taken a few steps when he fell into a deep, deep pit. When the first brother did not return, the second brother decided that he would go to try to seek him. And he too met the old man, who said, "Why do you seek the bird? Others have sought it before you and not returned." But the second brother said, "I must find the bird." So again the instructions were given to him, and a warning: do not heed the voices that bring doubt to you. And so the second brother, remembering these words of advice, found the gate, the garden, the cage, the bird. But as he was returning with the bird in the cage, he found the gate of the garden closed, and a fierce guard with a sword blocking his path. And the guard was about to kill him when the second brother bargained with him. But then also threatened the guard's life. And the guard, ceding, begged, "Please save my life. I have a family. If you allow me to remain alive, I will release those who have been kept." And so the brother allowed the guard to live, and was shown to the deep pit in which his brother and the others who had sought the bird remained. A ladder was placed in the pit, and all those who were captured there were released. The two brothers returned to the house of their foster mother and their sister with the bird, who brought great joy into their life with its song. Then one day the king was out riding in the forest when he saw a beautiful maiden gathering flowers. He instantly fell in love with her and asked her, would she become his wife? She said, I must ask my mother and my brothers. When the maiden and the king went back to the house, and the king was about to ask for the maiden's hand in marriage, the bird trilled and said, where is it worldwide that there would be anyone, any king, who would take his daughter for his bride? And then the bird trilled again and said, 3 times did the queen give birth, and 3 times did she grieve, each time a child being covered by that which she did weave. And with that, the old woman, the foster parent, came out carrying 3 pieces of cloth in rainbow colors. And when the king saw this cloth, he immediately recognized it as that of the weaving of his queen. Weeping, tears flowing from his eyes, he realized that these children were his very own. But he returned to his palace and brought the midwife to him, who would not admit what she had done until he threatened to pull out her tongue with a pair of pincers. And she admitted that she had covered the 3 children with the cloth woven by the queen and placed them in the forest. The king sent out messengers to find his queen, brought her back to the palace along with his 3 children, and also the foster mother, who was made comfortable for the rest of her life. The queen continued with her weaving, and so should we. Like all the stories, we can interpret it, knowing what its moral, its teaching is. We can also glean the symbols, the archetypes it contains. But what is that which binds it together? And what is its secret? the secret that's contained in every story. What is the thread that's run through your life? Maybe changing its name, but always the same thread. What is it that binds life now in our perception and our awareness in every moment? What is the secret contained in this and every story? What's the thread in your life? What does this story mean? What brings all the diverse elements, aspects of our psyche, of life together in every given moment? A wave, the thread, and the particle, the movement and the stillness, the emptiness and the fullness. Thank you.